Ladies and gentlemen, when George W. Bush was president, deficits were a big deal to Senator Kent Conrad, Democrat, North Dakota. Deficits don't matter anymore. A May article in the New Yorker tried to paint Senator Conrad and Representative Spratt as deficit hawks. I find it hard to believe they are any kind of deficit hawk, or many members of Congress for that matter, considering the way our deficit has exploded. And consider this, the National Taxpayers Union has given Spratt an F for his votes on federal spending every year for more than a decade. He had a couple D's earlier in his career. In the past 2 years, he voted with the taxpayers, which that's a shrinking amount of people who actually do have income tax liability. He voted for the taxpayers, with the taxpayers, 5 and 6% of the time. He voted for spending bills more often than the average member of the House, and more often than the average Democrat. Some deficit hawk. Conrad has an almost identical record, almost all Fs, with ratings of 5 and 6 in the past 2 years. In the 109th Congress, Spratt voted for $184 billion in additional spending and voted to cut, get ready for this, a whole $4.8 billion in spending. So he wants $184 billion in additional spending, but he's going to cut $4.8 billion. I guess that's what he means by deficit hawk. Conrad voted to cut $8 billion, but he also voted to hike spending by $362 billion. In what world are these guys trying to control the deficit? National Taxpayer Union does have one analysis that makes Conrad and Spratt look a little better. The bills they have sponsored are co-sponsored. Spratt introduced 32 bills that would increase spending and 2 that would cut spending. While that may not sound very thrifty, it compares favorably to, say, Hilda Solis, current Labor Secretary. She had 110 bills to increase spending, or Bonnie Flank's 112. And the total new spending in Spratt's bills, $7 billion, is positively Randian. Conrad's record is similar, 36 bills to increase spending by $8 billion, which compares favorably to, for instance, Hillary Clinton and Senator Thad Cochran of Mississippi, who is a big spender himself. Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, he's also an earmarxist-in-chief. I wouldn't mind if he just didn't run for re-election again. Apparently Conrad and Spratt don't introduce too many spending bills, but they vote for all the ones that get to the floor. Not exactly a strategy that holds the budget down. Wait, folks, there's more from Senator Conrad's pie hole. Consider this. He said this back in July 2008, commenting on a budget deficit of $482 billion in Bush's last year. He said this: if they gave out Olympic medals for fiscal irresponsibility, President Bush would take the gold, silver, and bronze. And Bush was more than happy to sign all those bills, whether it be a Democrat or Republican Congress. Bush loved to spend, we all know that. And here's what old Senator Conrad said in February 2009. He was referring to the budget, the 2010 budget extension that he voted for, or the extending Bush's last budget because he didn't fund it all the way through. That was signed in March. He voted for it. He voted for the stimulus too. And here's what Conrad said: I would describe it as a good beginning. So the projected budget deficit is now down to only a little over $1.5 trillion. And that's a good beginning. And don't forget, Senator Conrad is a deficit hawk. He reminds me a lot of Tom Daschle, former senator from South Dakota. In Washington, he was an obstructionist and a big spender. And back in South Dakota, he preached fiscal responsibility and bipartisanship, and he went the way of the dodo. Senator Conrad is a different animal in Washington. In Washington, he loves to spend. He loves to add to that deficit that he tells everybody back in North Dakota that he cares so much about, and we've got to reduce it. So I guess Senator Kent Conrad, to him, deficits don't matter anymore.